Welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this video we'll be learning how to implement a dynamic reusable data table component with Laravel 8, Laravel Mix 6 and ReactJS along with React hooks and Bootstrap 5. So couple of weeks back I did a video on creating this data table component with Vue.js. So now we want to implement the same thing using ReactJS. So let's see. We'll have a similar data table implemented in React. So you can see that over here we can update these per page fields, we can update the paginations, and we can sort through the items as well. So now without any delay, let's get started. So I have quickly scaffolded one Laravel application using this particular command Laravel new, and the name of the application is Lara React. So for the few things that we need to do is to update our .env file for the database changes. So the name of the database is Laravel table, and the username is root, and the password is null. So next thing what we need to do is to update the users table migration. So over here I have simply added this address field only, nothing more has been done. So next what we need is we need to generate something for the controller that can be done by the command php artisan make controller users controller. So I have completely made one video dedicated to the API, so I'll be pasting the link of the particular video on my description. So for now you can see that we do have a single method over here. So these are the public fields or the different constants variables that will require, and then these are the fields that will be allowed to be sorted, and then we have injected our model within this constructor and within this index method. So this is the main method. I will give you some time so that you can implement it on your computer. So now you can see that this is the main file where we get the sort input field, and we identify the sort field, we identify the sort order, we identify the search input, and based upon this we run this query to sort the table or sorts the data based upon the query provided, and also we implement the pagination. So for this I have made the use of Laravel resource so that the data can be implemented in a better way. So for this you need to check this particular file within this app http resources, so user resource. So over here you simply need to implement these things. You need to update the array so that our data will be formatted or transformed into these fields, so that our collection or the query that this controller returns, it will be calling this file so that we can get a formatted data. So after this what you need to do is simply you need to update the user factory. Over here you can add this address field, and after this you need to make some changes, like you need to run the migration using the command php artisan migrate, and next you need to do is run the command php artisan dbseed so that you can seed all the data. So you can see that within our database seeder, so this currently is calling this particular user factory, and we want to have the 500 users. So simply you can update this and you can run the seeder command php artisan dbseed, which will basically seed the 500 users within our database. So now let's check the output of the API, and after this we'll be moving towards React and Bootstrap slowly. So let's see. Okay, this is my current component. So the name of the application is ReactTable.test, and then over here I do have API/users. So this is my route. So within the route/API, what you can see is simply we are calling to this for the users route, we are calling the index method of the users controller. So you can see this is the output of the data. Over here you can see there are different things. We'll be basically making the use of this data. We'll be discarding this particular links object, and we need this meta for the implementation of the pagination. So over here you can pass the different things like search. If you wanted to search something for the RAM, so that could have been done. So I have already covered all these things in the other video, so we will be quickly be skipping all these things. So now let's move to the front-end implementation of the application. Okay, we want to make the use of the Bootstrap 5 because it is something new, so that can be done easily. So first of all, we need to add some of the dependencies. So some of the dependencies are we need to add the Bootstrap, and since we want to get the 5th version of the Bootstrap, so we need to provide this Bootstrap at the next, because the final version of the Bootstrap 5 has not been released at the moment. So we also need React, we need React DOM, we need Babel, and the preset for the React, and I think that's all that we will be needing during this, and all of these things are our dev dependencies. So let's quickly install these things. So all of the things are installed. So let's check within our package.json. We can see that these were the dependencies that are installed. The first one is preset React. So we install the Bootstrap 5.0.0 and beta 2. We install the React, we install the React DOM, and also this preset React. So now first of all, let's quickly set up the Bootstrap. So as you know, within our Laravel, all of the assets management can be done within the directory app resources. So over here we can simply create a new directory called SAS. So within this SAS we have created variable.scss, where the information about the different we have stored the information about the variables that will be required in the application. And then within this main app.scss, we will simply be importing the Google fonts, and then we'll be importing this particular variable.scss file, and we need to import this particular line imports the Bootstrap. So now we'll be adding other things within this after a while, because so at the moment we do not need to add any particular CSS, so we can continue. So also after we make the changes on this app.scss, we need to make some changes within this welcome.blade.php. So I have removed the default HTML or the blade junk and replaced this with the HTML5 boilerplate. So these are the main changes. I have imported this particular line to get the fonts from the Google, and over here I have imported the CDN for the font awesome, because we will be using this in our application. So over here now we can simply say that we need to make the use of the CSS that we will be compiling from this app.scss. And over here within the body I have simply created a simple container with the another class of the py5. It's for the padding, and the id app is given so that the React app can be mounted, and we need to load the compiled JS file. So for this we need to make some changes within the webpack.mix.js. So this is the one of the important file. So simply we want to compile the JS from resources JS app.js to public.js, and then this will be for the React. And also we want to compile the SAS. So we want to compile this particular app.scss file to public css app.public/css. So these are the basic changes that you can check from my GitHub repository, or you can copy from the code. So I think now we can really get started with the main thing, that is the implementation of the React. So for this, within resources JS, you can see that I do have app.js. So we are simply requiring the default bootstrap file, and then we can simply see that we are importing the React DOM, and we are importing also the app component from that. So this app component is the main component where we will be rendering our data table component, and we could make use of the single page application as well. So within this app.js, this has nothing more added at the point. Simply we are loading a simple counter. So it looks something like this. It simply has this counter, but now we want to make change into this so that we can implement a data table component. So now we will be getting into it. So now I will get rid of these dirty things. So now simply I will simply be creating a card over here. So now within the card header, let's say this also is trying to fetch the list of the users, so we can say users list. So now within the card body, we will be rendering a component over here. So but for now, let's say we will render data table component. So this is something that we want to add, and what we want to make sure is we want to make sure that we run the Laravel mix watch command, so that we can easily we can see the changes as soon as this gets compiled. So now let's come into this. Let's try to reload. It is not making any changes because I think it is loading some of the cache. So now we have cleared the cache, and you can see that we will be rendering a data table component. So now let's simply within this components directory we'll create a good component, that is data table component. So it will be DataTable.js. So now we want to make the use of the React functional components. So let's simply make like this. So we are importing React, and also we are simply trying to export this particular function. So I'd like to make this an arrow function. So let's say that this is const data table, and this is an arrow function. I will simply export default data table. So now as you can see that we simply exported this, and this is the data table. So as you can see, we are getting these semicolons. I do not want to make the use of the semicolons. So for this, okay, let's not worry about this at the moment. Otherwise you could use prettier, so that we could remove the things, the semicolons on the fly. So let's go to our Bootstrap 5's official website, and from there let's simply copy this boilerplate so that we can implement it as a table from scratch. So let's simply save this. That does not work because we are working with JSX and React, so we need to rename this class to class name. So I don't think there are other classes. Okay, so simply this becomes class name, and then I think everything is being compiled. And let's go to our components. Let's reload this, and it is still saying that we will render data table component because within this app.js we have not made anything. So now instead of this, over here we will be simply rendering our data table component. Okay, so now I don't, okay, simply by this this will open and close this particular tag. We already have imported this. I think everything is being compiled perfectly. Let's reload this. As you can see that we got this basic data table component. So now let's continue. So for the data table component, we want to make it dynamic, so that any parent component which uses it, so they can simply send something like the URL from here, and based upon the URL, this particular data table component will be able to call the API using third-party libraries for the HTTP calls. So now there are the two things that we need to take as a props or the properties for this data table component. The first one is URL and the next one is columns. This is because there are different columns like first name, last name, handle, etc. We do want to make something like if the user provides only 5 fields as a column, then only 5 data will be shown out of if there are 7 or 8 data within the API response. So now let's continue. So over here we need to pass two things. So the first one is URL. So the URL is so let's make it fetch URL, because we did the same thing for the view as well. So okay, so this is the fetch URL. So fetch URL, our URL will be /API/users that we implemented previously, and then we do want to pass the columns as well. So we want the following fields. We want the name, we want email, we want the address, and we want the created ad. So now as you can see, we passed all these things. So that now that we have provided all these necessary columns as a props as an array. So now let's go into the DataTable.js and replace the headers, column headers with this. So over here, so within the t head under this tr, so we will be looping through, we'll be mapping through all of the provided columns, and then we'll be simply returning a t head, and then we will simply assign a key to the column so that it is easier for React to identify, and then we'll simply just replace, we'll send this to uppercase, and then we'll replace the underscore with empty. So this looks something like this. So we wanted to send name, email, address, and created ad. So this has been achieved. So now let's move on. So now what I want is, over here I want to fetch the data from the database, and then also I want to add a loader. So this is something that I missed in my video when working with Vue, but I want to implement this when working with React. So let's get started. So for this, let's define some of the data. So let's make the use of the useState hook. So the first thing is let's name this as data, and then this, the initial state will be empty. So let's make this okay, let's set this. So the next thing that we want is something like loading. So because we want to make the use of the loader, we'll be using Bootstrap's spinner. So for that, let's say that loading and the set loading. So initially the data loading will be true, because initially we'll be fetching the data, we'll be calling the we'll be using our Axios or any other HTTP library to fetch the data. So initially loading will be set to true, and when the data fetching is done, we'll be setting this to false. So now over here what can be seen is that we are loading this data, but I would like to simply remove all these things. I don't think we will need this thing. So now let's work on. So over here let's add something like this. So when the data is being loaded, so in that case we will simply render something like this. When loading, we will have this return, and in case so just to make sure that data loading is being done, I will simply copy something from the Bootstrap's okay, let's simply copy this, let's paste it over here, and then let's say data loaded. So let's try. So simply this is the particular line that I copied. So we do want to show a loader when the data is being loaded. So for this you could go to the Bootstrap 5 and you could search for the spinner, so you will get one of this option. So let's see what is the output of the code. So it is getting error. So it is saying that user state is not being defined because it needs to be imported over here like this, and then let's try to reload it again, and it is still failing because the loader style is described over here. It is mentioned over here, but it is not it does not seem to be stored in a variable, assigned in a variable. So for that over here, before this let's simply make something like loader style. We want to have something like this, width of the 4 rem, and then height of the same length 4 rem. So let's quickly reload this. So as you can see, we'll be adding such loader when the data is being loaded. So for this what we have done is within the t-body, when this loading is set to be true, in that case we'll be simply rendering a row, and within this row we'll be adding a column, and we'll be adding the call span, the total number of the columns provided plus 1, and within this this is the Bootstrap's spinner. So you can check this within the official documentation of the Bootstrap as well. So now when the data loading has been completed, so in that case also we need to do something. So for that over here let's make this. So before that I want to make change to the table head. I want to add the particular class over here so that it looks similar to view. So that can be done by adding table-dark. So now let's see, it will be something different. Okay, it is coming closer to views data table. So now let's move on. So now when the data is being loaded, so let's set this to be false. So now we can see what is the output. So when the data is loaded, it will be shown something like this, but it says that there is some error because div cannot, or h1 cannot come as a child of the t-body. So let's fix this. So for this we'll be looping through the provided columns similar to that, and based upon that we'll be fixing this. Okay, in case there is no data, in that case also we need to make sure that we show something, but let's not worry about that. So in case of this let's simply will render we need to loop through these columns, and based upon the columns we will work. Okay, for that we have already set data to use state. Okay, that's all. So now over here we will map through the data, and then okay, I think instead of data it will be better to name this as table data as done for the view. Okay, table data, right? So table data dot map, and it will be data, and it will be getting the index as well, and while looping through all of them we'll be returning an arrow function. So over here we will be returning a table row, and then we need to bind the value of the key to the provided key. Okay, it needs to be index. Actually assigning key to index is really not a good idea. We could have passed something like data.id. That could have been better. So for that let's quickly go to my user resource, and I think we are not returning id at the moment, so let's return the id, and over here we'll simply be returning this id. So now we will not be getting this index, we'll be simply getting the data. So data.id, we'll be binding the value to data.id, and over here again we need to look through the columns, and then for the column we will be returning another arrow function, and this will basically return a column, and where we will be getting the value from data dash column as done for view as well. So the value of the key can be simply the name of the column, because this is the string. So let's check, is there any data? No, there is no data, because we have not done anything for fetching the data. So before doing that, over here I want to add something. If the length of the column is empty, or there are no data within the data array, so in that case I want to render something like this. So table data dot length is equal to 0. So in that case we will simply be returning an row, and within this we'll be adding a column with the span of the columns plus column dot length, and then over here we could simply say no items found. So let's see, and in case if there is data, we'll do nothing. This is how the React works. So no items found. So initially you can see that there are no data being loaded, and over here we have already added. So this is the first case when there no data is found. We simply need to display this particular row, and if there are data or the data is being loaded, in that case we need to either show the loader or we need to show the table data. So it solely depends upon how this is being done. So now we need to fetch the data. So for that we need to make the use of Axios, and we can move on. So within the Bootstrap.js we can see that we already have defined this window.axios is equal to Axios. So if we are working this within the another application created using the create React app, so in that case you need to make sure that you import Axios on the top of this. So now for this we need to have something like useEffect hook. So this is something new in the new thing that is introduced by the React if you are coming from the background of the class-based components. So I need to make the use of the useEffect hook. It is something like it deals with the lifecycle of the hooks. So useEffect, so we need to fetch the data. So I will simply define a function over here like we did in Vue. So we will be doing a comparison video between the React and Vue, we're comparing with the DataTable component in the coming days. So now when the data is this is a function which will be an arrow function. We'll be making this an async. So what are the params? We also need to pass some of the params, and they are the different params that our API accepts are page number, per page, sort field, etc. So now, so for this sort field, so let's name this like the sort field, and then sort underscore order. This needs to be sort order. We need to pass the per underscore page, which will be doing this in a while. Also we need to pass the value of the current page. So what I need to do is I need to define all these things. So let's simply copy this line. So for the loading, so we need something like the sort field, and let's simply copy this set and the sort field, this needs to be capital, and this will be for the default sort field. We will be taking the first value of the column, and then we'll be sorting the data based upon it. So we also need some other things like this is not working, so we need sort order, and this sort order needs to be ascending. So for that, let's define two variables over here, const sort underscore asc, this is for the ascending, and also const sort underscore dsc, this will be for the descending. So so by default our column will be sorted in the ascending order. So now let's set this, and we need to have another thing for the current page. So current page by default it needs to be 1, so let's make this capital. Okay, and then I think we grabbed the sort field, we grabbed the sort order, we grabbed the current page, and we need per page as well. So for that let's make this state again, and what we need is, for the current page is done, now we need per page. Okay, per page, so by default per page will be something like 10. So we have defined all these things. So now we need to call an API call, so that can be done using the Axios. So we'll be simply doing await Axios, and then we'll be calling this fetch URL, and then we need to pass all these things as the params. So this is because I need to call to this particular URL. So Axios.get for this particular URL, and this is the options for providing the different params as the query string. And then when the data is got, we need to simply set table data to the data.data. I will show this in a while. So now let's go and let's reload this, and let's check within the network tab. It is saying that useEffect is not defined. This is because it was not imported. So let's get into this, let's try to reload, and it is again showing some sort of error because it's saying that input is not defined. So where is the input? Let's check for the input. Okay, this is the reason. Okay, let's make this and then instead of return, okay, we need not do this. Let's simply remove this. Let's call the fetch data function, and then our useEffect hook is dependent upon the sort field, it is dependent upon the sort order, it is dependent upon the per page, it is dependent upon the current page as well. So what does this do is, we already have defined all these states or data within our component, and how does this work is, as soon as there is any change within these things, when these particular fields are changed, so this will basically, it will re-render the components. So this is one of the good aspect when it comes to using the hooks of the React. So now it is still getting some sort of error. So now let's see. So it's saying that columns.key is not a function. So let's see where does that happen. I might have made some sort of mistake. Okay, columns.key, so that was the mistake. It was to be map, or we could have called another function. So as you can see over here, we had defined all these things as the params, and all these things are passed, like the sort field name, sort order is equal to ASC, per page is equal to 10, and page is equal to 1. So you can see this is done beautifully, and okay, it is done nicely. So we basically implemented a very simple data table component over here. So now let's move on. So now let's implement something for this. When I click on this, so in this case it should change the sorting. So let's move on. So we already have imported the font awesome. So now within this table head I need to add something. So for this I will simply be copying something. Okay, I will simply be copying something and then I will be pasting it over here. Okay, within this th after the values are set. So we have added this line. Please make sure that we added this. So if the current column that we are looping in, so that is equal to the sort column, so in that case, so we need to check whether the sort order is ascending. If that is ascending, we need to show an arrow up, and if the current sort order is in descending order, we need to show the arrow down. And this null means if this current column is not being sorted, we need not worry about this. So let's simply reload this. Okay, I got an error. So what is it saying? It is saying that sort column is not defined because we defined this as the sort field. So instead of sort column, let's make this sort field, and let's reload this again. So you can see that currently name is being sorted in the ascending order, and we want something over here when this is being clicked. So we want to make sure that if this field is being sorted at the moment, then the sort order needs to be changed. And if, let's say, if the currently name was being sorted and I click on the email, so the email fields needs to be sorted in the ascending order. So for this within this th let's add a event over here. So on click event, so what will happen is it will basically get an e, and we'll be calling a function handle sort, and we'll pass the name of the column as well. So I find that there is some sort of okay, I will do something that I promised to do previously. So let's so simply let's generate the prettier RC file, and then over here let's open this prettier RC file. So we want two things. So first one is semi, we don't want the semicolon, and the next one is print width. I want this to be longer, so I want this to be 120. I want to run the command yarn words again, and then please note that I have installed Prettier as one of the extension within this VS Code, so it works awesome with the PHP Storm as well. So you need to generate this Prettier RC file, which will make some sudden changes as soon as the file is being saved. So the reason for me to this to do is the print width was the default value is 80, and then most of the things are going into the newer line, and which is making difficult to read the code even though lot of the space is available. So I will simply save this, and the code will be reformatted. As you can see that at least the things are looking comparatively better at the moment. So now over here, now let's simply create a function for the handling the sort functionality, handle sort. So the name of the function is handle sort, and then it takes one parameter as the column, and then within here, when the function is called, what do we need to do is we need to check if the provided this column is equal to the sort field. Okay, in that case we need to simply update this sort order. Okay, sort order is equal to, if the sort order is the ascending, in that case we need to set sort order to sort descending, and if that is not the case, we will simply set sort order to sort underscore ASC. So if the current column that we are trying to if the column that we clicked is sorted, in that case we check if the current sort order is ascending. So in that case we make the order to be descending, and if the order is already in the descending, then we need to make sure that the order is now as ascending. So now this is the case. In the else, if the current column is not sorted, in that case we simply need to make sure that we need to set sort field to the provided column, and then I added semicolon mistakenly, I'm sorry. So set sort order. So in that case, in this case, this basically needs to be sort underscore ascending. So let's simply save this. So let's come to my browser and let's try to reload this. So as you can see, currently the name is being sorted. When I click on this, the name is sorted in the descending order. So when I click on the address, you can see that this address is sorted in the ascending order. If I click on this again, it goes for the descending order. So this is one of the functionality that we achieved. So now let's implement another functionality that is known as implementation of the loader. It seems that we missed something. So when the useEffect, when this particular useEffect, this fetch data is being called, or if anything among this is changed, we need to make something like let's do this. Give me a minute. So for the fetch data method, as soon as we are trying to fetch the data, we simply need to set loading to true, and then when the data is fetched, we need to make sure that set time out. We'll call this function set time out, because when working in the local environment, the data is fetched so fast that we cannot see the loader. So just to make sure that we can see the loader, I will simply add set time out of 300, and over here I will simply set the set loading to false. So initially the data needs to be this needs to be true, because we call that function as soon as this component is being rendered. So let's see. It is being loaded. So when clicking on the address, it seems good. So depending upon your need, you can update this particular thing. So but for me, when working on the local environment, when things are pretty much faster than it requires, in that case I feel that it's better to add something like set timeout. So that's being done. So now the sort functionality is being done. We fetch the data based upon the provided columns, and we are able to get the data. So we don't have any issues at the moment. I think yes, we don't have any issues. So it's everything is fine. So now let's add two things over here. We will be adding input field. So this time we'll not be submitting the search field with the button like we did in the view. Instead we'll be making the use of the debounce for preventing the throttling, and we'll be adding another thing over here for maintaining the per page. So let's get into that. So let's go into my code. So over here I'll be adding something like this. So what does this mean is the table starts here. So now we want something for the search and the per page starts, and then it will end at some point, and then this will be ends. So now I will also be copying the HTML over here, so that it will save my time, and I will explain this to you quickly. So I will simply paste this over here, but I think JSX expression must have the one parent element. Yes, it is true. So I did a mistake that I did not make a class over here. So there should have been one particular div. So this needs to wrap everything within this component. the same rule goes with the view as well. For the view 2, but for the view 3 we can have the multiple root divs. Okay, it is okay, it looks better at the point. Okay, search start and in goes over here. So I'll simply, okay, it was the mistake of this particular thing. Sometimes these extensions make us crazy. So okay, so this is the particular div that I copied. So I will give you some time so that you can copy. So this is the main root div. So within this we have added a div with the class name of the row mv3, so margin button 3, and we are having this input field. So it basically says that search something, and then we do have this function for the search. So over here we do have the option for the per page. So you can see that we are setting the per page values like this, but I think it is better to do something like this. So over here const per underscore page underscore options, let's make this an array. So the options that we want to give to the users are 5, 10, 20, 50 and 100. So that's good. So over here, where was the place? I think I'm okay, over here. So we want to loop through this per page options. Let's simply loop through this options.map. So let's name this as per page, and let's simply return. We need to return an HTML tag with the value of the option, and the value will be per page, and we also need to pass the key over here, otherwise the compiler will give some sort of error. So this should be something like, let's assign this to per page. Okay, so this is the code that we have added, starting from here, row mb3 up to this. So what does this do? It will do is it will add something like this. We have this search, and we have the per page option like this. So now as soon as the user types something, so in that case we do want to make an API call for the search. So as you can see, the input type is search. So this is for the modern versions of the HTML5. I think most of the modern browsers support this. So now as you can see, this is the input field, and now for the input field what we have done is on change we are simply trying to call this function handle search. So let's create another function over here for the handle search. So let's make this something like this, const handle search, and it will be an arrow function as well. So for this what we will be doing is we will be making the use of the two things. That one is we'll be checking the debounce from the load-as, and the next thing is we'll be using the useRef hook from the React. There are the two things that we'll be implementing. So let's quickly get into this. So useRef. Okay, let's okay, I will simply remove this, and we'll be calling the useRef. And for this, first of all, let's import. We need to import the debounce from load-as. So I got this load-as installed because I am using Laravel, and within this Bootstrap.js you can see that we already have this load as installed. But if you are working on you are watching this video and you are working on the app created with the create react app, in that case make sure that you install load as one of your dependencies. So we need to import the debounce from the load as, and over here for the useRef, after this we need to simply call the function for the debounce, and then since we are passing the query as a parameter from our input field, so we simply need to do something like this. We need to set set search to this query, and then we need to make sure that the current page is set to 1. Also we need to set the set sort order to the ascending order, and then we need to set the sort field to the first columns, and then we want to call this for the half of the second, and then we need to get the current value. Okay, I think we have not defined the search value. So over here what can be done is use state for the search, and this needs to be empty thing, set search. Okay, that's being done. So over here, as soon as user types something, we are calling this function handle search, and we are passing the value of this particular input field. The target.value provides the value of the field, and then this function handle search function is basically making the use of the useRef. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to provide this as the params when calling the Axios. So we can simply do this by adding this search over here, because the value of the key and the value are same. We need not assign this like this, because the ES6 automatically handles this for us. And within this useEffect hook, so this is one of the dependency. What does I mean to say is, as soon as there is some change in the value of the search, this component needs to be re-rendered. So let's reload this. Let's go over here. Let's try something for the RAM. You can see that it is searching the data. So network call. So initially, let's see, initially the source value is empty, there is nothing. So now when I type something like RAM, you can see that the values are same. So you might have noticed that we have implemented the debounce, because of which one of the beautiful thing has been achieved is that, so if I want to search something for the zone, so it does not make API call for each and every fields for the J, JO, GOH. It does not call the API for the each key up or the each change on the input field. Instead, it does all those things in the duration of the time, which is done with the implementation of the debounce. Okay, we are clear. So now next thing that we want is we want to make the use of this functionality as well. So now let's go. So as you can see, within this place, we already have added this particular function which says that on change we need to handle the per page. So let's do this. Let's create another function over here, handle per page change over here. So let's simply say const handle per page. Okay, handle per page, it basically means we need to handle something. So the per page change, so for this we can create an arrow function, and over here we need to set the current page to 1. Otherwise we could have simply set this value within the same line. Also we want to set send per page to the provided value. So let's come over here, and currently 10 data are being sorted, and if I wanted 20, you can see that 20 datas are inserted. So now also add another particular class over here so that the table becomes responsive. So the class is table-responsive. Okay, let's reload this. So you can see that currently there are 10 datas, and if there were 20 datas, we do have the scroller over here. So now the height of this particular div remains same, it does not change. So I think it's the good thing that we have implemented, so that we can implement even if there are 100 datas being loaded, the height remains over here, and this particular column head or this particular thing that this the table head does not change. So okay, at the point we already have implemented the searching, we have implemented the sorting, and also the per page functionality. So now another beautiful thing that we want is we want to implement the use of the pagination. So let's go into Bootstrap 5 for the pagination, and then we'll get something from this place. So let's get started. For the pagination, within this, now as you can see, I do have these things. I will create a new component called Paginator.js, and this Paginator will be RFC. That means it is a functional based component. I'll make this an arrow function because I love to work with the ES6 completely. So over here within this place, I think let's copy this HTML and then let's simply paste. Let's format the code. Let's see that this all of these classes, they need to be class name, and then we already have exported this. Nothing more has been done. So within this data table, I will simply okay, within this, after this table, or where I think it needs to be done something after the table. Okay, let's render the Paginator component over here. Okay, since I do not want to make use of those things, okay, let's reload. You can see that the Paginator has been added, so we want to make sure that this works perfectly. So over here, so only if the table data dot length is greater than 0, and if this is not being loading, in that case we want to render this Paginator. Otherwise we do not want anything to be rendered in this particular place. Let's see, when the data is being loaded, nothing is being shown, and let's say if the 50, okay, it's working. I think it works good. Okay, I think I need to wrap this Paginator within a div, and I need to add some sort of margin top to this place. empty-2 div-empty-2. Okay, this does not work. This is not as good as PHP Storm. Okay, empty-2. Let's cut this thing, let's paste it over here. And now for the Paginator, let's see how the response of the API is. So you can check my video on Vue as well. We have beautifully implemented this functionality over there as well. So this is the response. Data, we are making the use of the data at the point. So for the links, let's completely discard this. And for the pagination, you can see that we need to make use of all these things as our props. So within the Paginator.js component, means within this, so we need to get something as a props. So let's make this as pagination, and then let's simply save this. So this pagination, this needs to be sent as pagination from here, and the value can be something like pagination, which we have not defined at the moment. So but going over here, we simply make the use of the useState hook, and this is the pagination, and this needs to be capital. It always makes the same mistake, and it's an object. So as soon as the data loading is successful, in that case we need to set the pagination to this data.meta. This is because the Axios library returns everything. It wraps everything, every data that we have sent from our API as data, and then we set the value of this data to the table data, and for the pagination we set the this data.meta. So now it basically means we already have set the pagination, so we have nothing more to do in this file at the point. So now we have passed the pagination. Now let's go to the Paginator.js, and within this you can see that we are showing these pages as 1, 2, 3, 4, but instead we want to loop through the each pages. We will loop through this. We need, first of all, we need to calculate the total number of the pages based upon this provided data. So for this, what I need is I need to call the useEffect function. So for this, I will be copying the code from my view component, because the concept of generating the page numbers is same, because both of them are the JavaScript libraries. So useState has been imported, but this is not being worked. So let's say the page numbers, and then this needs to be page number, and initially we want to have the empty array of the page numbers. So over here we will have the useEffect. So we'll have the useEffect hook. I will simply copy the content, and then I will set the pagination values. Okay. So simply there is a useEffect hook which has set pagination pages as a function, and then it is calling this thing, and then the dependency of this component is the pagination, which is the props of this component. So over here we are setting the initial value of the pages to empty array. We are destructuring the last page, current page, from and to. From this, it means we are getting this from page, last page, these all things we are restructuring this, and then we are calculating for the total number of the pages. So here we need to define the offset. So let's define this as well. Const offset is equal to 4. Okay. So basically this function will be called as soon as the paginator component is rendered, and then it will calculate the pages, and then it will set the values to the page numbers over here. Okay, that's all. So now the next thing that we want is we want to map through all of these page numbers. So I will get rid of all of these things except for the next and the previous, because we need these things, they are the necessary evils. Okay, so I will look through the page numbers, and as you can see that we have made the use of this map function many times throughout this particular video. So we'll be mapping through all of the page numbers, and then we simply need to return an list item. So we need to define the Okay, over here what can be done is simply let's show the page number without any delay, and let's reload this. Okay, there is error. The above error occurred, useEffect is not defined. This is the sad reality. Okay, I may not use VS Code in the upcoming videos. I will switch back to my PHP Storm. Okay, so we need to define the key. So page number, this needs to be the key, and over here you can see that we are able to generate the page numbers. So but currently it does not have any class, it does not look beautiful. So let's make this beautiful. So we'll be adding some conditions also over here. Okay, let's get into it. So for the class name, we simply want to add the default class for this. It needs to be page item, and if this page number is the pagination.current page, if the current page that we are looping through, and if the pagination, the props current page is same, so in that case we need to add something for the active class. So simply just remember that, add a space over here, and then say page item has already been added and it needs to be active, otherwise nothing needs to be done. So let's see how does this go. Let's reload this. Okay, it did not work. Okay, page item plus, that should have worked, but this always makes some sort of error. Okay, li class active is added. It is adding active to all of them. Okay, we are looping through this, right? So page numbers.map page number. Okay, li key is equal to page number, class name page number, value should have been okay, pagination.current page. Let's simply log page number and pagination.current page. Let's go over here. Okay, 1 1 2 1, yes, but the conditionals does not seem to be working fine. Let's see, it's true for the first one and it's false for the rest of the 8 data. Okay, if instead of this, what can be done is, if page number is equal to, in this case what can be done is page dash item, and then over here, so it can simply be something like, okay, there are many ways when it comes. Okay, over here instead of this we should have added a tag over here. Class name is equal to page dash link, and then the value should have been the page number. Let's see, let's hope that this works beautifully. Okay, it's working, so it works. It's great. Let's not worry about other things at the moment. Okay, that is being done. So now the next thing that we want is, we do not want this previous button to be active when we are on the first page, and this next to be active when we are on the last page. So let's check, let's fix the issue for that as well. Over here for the previous, as you can see that class name is page link, and then we need to add some classes of the disabled. Okay, over here instead of this, let's wrap this within this, and then page not over here, within this page item, simply wrap this within this. And if pagination dot current page is called to 1, so in this case it needs to be disabled, else nothing needs to be added. Let's see. Okay, it is still clickable and nothing has been added. Okay, the reason is we need to add a space, though it's not a good idea. Okay, okay, yeah, it's not clickable, no network calls are being done. So for let's do this, let's copy the same code from here and let's go for the last. For this next, let's paste this over here. So instead of current page, this needs to be if the current page is equal to pagination dot last page. So pagination dot last page, in that case this needs to be disabled. So the only way to check that this becomes disabled is when we implement the click functionality, when we will be able to go to the next and the previous pages. So apart from that, I want to add something. I want to add few things over here, so that, sorry for the disturbance. Okay, last page we can add something like this, last page, and okay, I think the content needs to be same. Okay, and let's copy this same thing, and then this needs to be, instead of this needs to be for the first page. Okay, let's reload this, and the first page and the previous are disabled when we are on the first page. We need to make sure that we can go to the another pages when we click on this. So for this we need to make some changes on the data table component first, and then we need to come back to this. Okay, so within this DataTable.js we need to add some sort of event, like we used to emit an event on our view. So the concept is similar. So let's say that the event is page changed, and it will return some data like page. In that case, we simply need to set current page to the provided page. So this is all that we need to add within this DataTable.js. But within this pagination, so we need to take this page changed as an props. We need to take this as a property, and then we need to make some changes over here. So now let's go into this. As soon as the user clicks on this, when clicking on these things, we need to make sure that we call this function, like we need to call the page changed, and we need to provide the value of 1. What it does do is it will basically emit an event. It is similar to view. Please remember how we implemented this in the view. You can check the description of the views video, which I will be pasting on the description. So when the page change event is occurred, this page changed event function will be called. We are passing 1 from here, and this will be captured or listened within this DataTable.js, and then over here it will set the current page to provided page. So this is how the communication between the child and parent goes. So we already know that when we want to pass data from parent to child, we can pass via the props, but in this is the particular case where we need to pass some data from the child to the parent. So in this case, this is how the communication between the two components goes on. Okay, so this is what we have added over here. So let's copy the same code. Let's copy the same code, but this page change, this needs to be pagination.current-page -1, and then so over here as well we need to call this function, and then this needs to be, the value needs to be the page number. So over here for the next we can simply paste the same code. Instead of 1, this needs to be page that could have been page number +1. Simply we could do +1 for the no, this is not how it works. It needs to be something like pagination.current-page +1, and for the last page let's simply paste, and the value is pagination.last_page. Let's see, let's hope that this works perfectly. So let's try to click for the next. Okay, we are able to go on to the second page. You can see that the first and the previous buttons are enabled. Let's say if I click on this, both of these are disabled. So now I can go to the page number 5, I can go to the page number 7, I can go to the next, I can go to the last page. So as soon as I go on to the last page, what you can see is that the next and the last page, these two options are automatically disabled. I can easily go to the page number 1, I can go to the last page. So this is the beauty that we achieved. So the last thing that we want to implement is we want to show some option over there saying that we are showing some sort of data out of the total data entities. So this is how we implemented in the view as well. Okay, so after this let's simply say that we are showing pagination.from.pagination.to of the total entries. So how does this look? This is something like we are showing 1 to 10 of the 500 entities. So if there are 50 datas, how could this have the output have been? It is something like showing 1 to 50 data out of the 500 entities. So I could go to the last page directly, so which would be the page number 10. So it says we are showing 451 to 500 of the 500 entities. So I could search for RAM. So please note that when searching for the RAM, we are setting the value of this page to be 1, the current page to be 1, and this value to be the first value of the column that we provided as the props. Okay, and then when searching for the address, it goes like this. So I could clear all these things, it goes to the first page. So basically you can see that we implemented a very beautiful looking data table component. We have added this loader, we have added all these things like this vertical scrolling option over here when the data are more than this particular 10, and we do have implemented the pagination. There is a particularly good working sort functionality, search functionality. So this is how we implemented the things that we did in the view. So let's see how the output was for the Vue.js projects. So that was named as Laravel table.test. So you can see the design looks almost similar. So we had used Laravel UI for scaffolding the front end, which we have not done in this part. So there may be some sort of there might be some little changes in the design, but overall the behavior and the functionality it looks similar. So there are few things that we have not implemented within the view, which we can do in the upcoming videos, but you can see that we are able to achieve a fully functional, reusable and the dynamic data table component using ReactJS and Laravel 8. So the main idea of the video was to give you idea on how to implement this component, and the main idea is to learn the components and how the communication between the two components takes place. So we'll be stopping the video with these changes. So you can find the description, the article to the Medium, and also for the GitHub repository within the description. I'll be pushing all those things. So in the upcoming videos we'll be working deeper and deeper with ReactJS. So I plan to transform everything. I plan to transform all these things into TypeScript, as I did a video on how to set up TypeScript with ReactJS, so I have plans for that as well. So stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, to like, share and subscribe. So see you again in the next amazing video. Thank you so much for your time.